All right, so last time Paul kind of busted an intro onto us. It was he. All right, so obviously we see from the first episode. Nope. All right, so obviously we see from the last one, Paul likes to ramble. We're talking 7 verses, 1 sentence, all about who he is, his call, and then our call as a result of that, and then sort of he's writing to believers. And so it's kind of weird. You find yourself in an awkward predicament of like, okay, why is he presenting the gospel to people who already know it? And then he presents this message of this is who Jesus is, and this is the spirit of holiness. Stupid. All right, so last. All right, so we saw from the intro, Paul likes to ramble. Obviously, we gathered that 7 sentences, or all right, so we saw from the intro, Paul likes to ramble, right? He's got it's 7 verses and it's all 1 sentence. And he's talking about who he is and what his call is and about Jesus and how he was raised from the dead and how he's declared the Son of God with power. And then he gives us our call. And then, oh, yeah, I'm writing to you believers. That was all 1 sentence. And to me, I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, why would you write this to believers, first of all? And second of all, like, have a little bit of common sense for how to introduce your subject matter. Like, he walks in, this is Jesus declared with power. The All right, so we see Paul likes to ramble. In his intro, he's got 7 verses and it's all 1 sentence. And he's talking, Paul, this is who I am. This is what I'm called to do. This is what Jesus did. Here's your call as a result of that. And I'm talking to believers. And I find it really interesting because he starts it off saying, man, I'm Paul, and this is what Jesus did, and the Spirit of holiness raised him from the dead. Now you've got a mission. And we're just talking bomb of an intro, like, okay, like, learn how to ease into things. I don't even know who you are. We'll see in a second. They haven't even met Paul yet, and he's just busting them. So here you go. And it's interesting because he gives them the call that apostles have. And we're talking every Christian has an elite call to present the gospel. And he says, you're called to bring about the obedience of the nations. Now, I'm just thinking, like, that's your intro. Here's your call, bring about the obedience of the nations. Like, it's hard enough to get me to do things sometimes that I want to do, like working out. And sometimes it's hard enough to get off the couch, stop being fat and eating food, and go work out. And I like working out. So to bring about the obedience of nations, like, that's your intro. This is what you got. And like, I understand, okay, we've got the Spirit of God in us that raised Christ from the dead. Like, surely you'll be able to bring live actions into other people's lives. But I'm just thinking, like, okay, that's a pretty bold statement. And I feel like his message could end there. This is what Jesus did. This is your call as a result. And the end. See ya. Like, it could have ended there. And some of his letters almost seem to. And, you know, I just, all right, so obviously we see from the last one that, all right, so obviously we see from Paul's intro, he likes to ramble. He's talking about, I'm Paul, this is who I am, I'm called, I'm an apostle. He gives us his calling. He talks about Jesus and the power that was inside of him. And then, all right, so obviously Paul likes to ramble. He starts off, I'm Paul, and here is my call, and then he goes on to talk about this is what Jesus did, and he's declared the Son of God with power. And then he goes on to say, now you're called as apostles, and by the way, I'm talking to Christians. What's up? Like, that's his intro. It's 7 verses. It's all one sentence, and it's weird. Like, he drops a bomb. That's not a normal intro. Like, okay, learn how to ease into your intros a little bit here, buddy. Like, this is who I am. This is what Jesus did. Now you're called as apostles. Okay, and you're not just called as apostles. You're called to bring about the obedience of the nations. Like, okay, it's hard enough to get myself to do something sometimes that I want to do, like work out. Sometimes I just want to sit on the couch and eat, pancakes and get fat. Like, it's hard to bring about obedience in me. How am I supposed to do it to the nations? And that's your intro, just boom, here's what you got to do. And I understand, like, okay, we do have the power of the Spirit that raised Christ from the dead inside of us, so we should be able to bring their dead actions to life, but like, that's kind of a hefty intro. And after what he said, that could kind of be the end of the book of Romans. It obviously doesn't end there, but it's interesting because we see, like, have you ever met someone who they just were over the top about something and it was a little bit ridiculous to you? Like, especially it comes about in my life in super spiritual people. They'll go up to him and be like, okay, hey, how are things going for you? And they're just, oh, Jesus has just been so great to me. I'm suffering and I'm going through trials, but he's always been there for me. And he'll continue to be here because he's my rock and my redeemer. And I love him and he loves me and Jesus. And I'm just like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go read my Bible so I can catch up to where you're at spiritually. That was Paul. And we see that, and it's crazy. So let's look at it real quick. So we're looking at verses 8 through 17. And it says, first, I thank my God through Jesus Christ our Lord for you all, because your faith is being proclaimed throughout the whole world. For God, whom I serve in my spirit in the preaching of the gospel of his Son. I don't want to keep doing this one because it sucks.